Welcome to the first episode of Learner's Permit. I'm excited to have you here, and I'm excited to be here myself. Learner's Permit is a bit of a departure for me from Digital North, because with each new episode, I'll have a new guest on. So in this first episode, you'll hear an interview I conducted with Kishore Satwal earlier this year, and I'm sorry if I butchered that last name, buddy. Kishore and I studied Norwegian last year, and after hearing about his experience in yoga, I knew that I just had to pick his brains about yogic philosophies a little bit. I myself have done yoga somewhat regularly for a few years now. I began in late high school, and while I was working on my bachelor's degrees, I would attend yoga classes several times a week, as well as doing it a little bit on my own. Last year, while I was studying in Volda, I was fortunate enough to get hired at a gym, and I began a group exercise class I called Movement and Mobility. It was basically a mobility class in which I began incorporating yoga poses into, mostly as transitional movements, and just also because I found them really helpful. I treated the class more clinically than a standard yoga class, and that was mostly because I was focused on alleviating pain and improving mobility above any of the other kind of calming and almost strength-building movements that you'll have in yoga. During that time, Kishore was also teaching a yoga class, and so I knew that I just had to talk to him while we were both pretty involved in our practices. And while I feel that I have a pretty good grasp of how to do yoga, I hadn't ever really learned much about the philosophies behind yoga during my practice. So ideas of chakra and things like that were just kind of words to me. I didn't really know what they meant. Yoga and stretching in general had always been more of an athletic endeavor for me. And because of this, I'm so happy that I was able to sit down with Kishore and learn a little bit about the traditional thought behind the practice of yoga. So I hope you all enjoy hearing Kishore inform us a little bit about what it means to practice yoga, as well as the differences between yoga in the US and yoga in India. So without further ado, I bring you episode 1 of Learner's Permit. So, welcome Kishore.
Thank you.
I'd like to talk to you today about yoga, because yoga is something that we're both involved with, actually, in Volda to some degree. And it's something that is so incredibly popular now in America. Mm-hmm. I mean, you have yoga studios in every city, every university. And it's really popular in Norway too. It's
Absolutely.
Pretty easy to find yoga here. And so maybe you could just talk a little bit about your yoga experience, because you've had quite a bit of formal training in yoga, right?
Mm-hmm. That's right. Thank you for having me on this show. It's an honor to be here and talk to you. I really appreciate you asking me to speak with you, first of all. My experience with yoga began when I was a kid. As a 12-year-old kid, we would say I was initiated into yoga in a way. So as a kid, obviously I didn't know much about what I was getting into. So it was more like a summer camp. That it all started as a summer school. So I started going to a summer school that taught yoga, so a yoga summer school. And then it later on became a really an important part of our family life. So my father, my sister, my brother, my cousins, all of us would go to yoga class 5 a.m. every day. So that's where it started off. And fortunately for us, we enrolled ourselves in a very well-established and very good school, I would say, called Patanjali Yoga Shiksha Samaniti. That's, of course, in my language. So that's a school in the southern part of India. And it's a school that focuses on 2 main classes, one for children, one for adults. And of course I was in the children's school, and it was a great experience, because when I got into it, it was all about having fun, because yoga for children, it's more designed, it's designed so that they are engaged and they, you keep that interest levels going through the day.
Of course.
So it was a lot of fun in the beginning, because we were just, messing around and trying to explore our bodies. And of course, the teachers knew what they were doing. They were very serious about their jobs and serious about what kind of asanas they were teaching us and all those things. So the beginning was fantastic. I couldn't have asked for a better beginning for me in yoga, because it was also really special, because we had expedition camps with yoga. So we practiced yoga for a long time, and then in the summer we would go to the mountains to have like an outdoor life yoga experience. What that meant is we would travel to the mountains in the southern part of India, live there, and do yoga, and basically live off the forest. And so you sort of live this life where you're doing yoga and gathering food from the forest, and really close to nature. So that was the beginning, and that was my early experiences with yoga, and that has obviously had a lasting impact on me even now. When I look back on yoga, it takes me back to those times where we was doing yoga in the woods. So
yeah, I imagine that would be really powerful to have the practice of yoga so intimately connected to the lifestyle that you're living in the forest. And that sounds lovely. Yeah. that sounds like a nice vacation. So my experience with yoga has only been in America and in Norway. And I think in a lot of ways my yoga experience has been, shall we say, westernized quite a bit. It's always been at a fitness studio, and while the teachers were calming and they spoke really kind of clearly and softly, and it was very calming to listen to them speak, I really feel that they kind of were a lot more focused on the athletic part of yoga, on strengthening and loosening your muscles and holding a pose to become stronger. In fact, I did a yoga class where we used light weights for a while to help tone our muscles.
Okay. That's interesting.
So I just wanted to know what have you noticed any distinct differences from I don't want to say that all Indian and all Western yoga is the same, but are there some values in Western yoga that you see in most studios here that you wouldn't necessarily see in most studios in India?
That's a very good question, and so that's actually a question that needs to be addressed quite often, I think, because like you said, I have been in a few Western yoga settings or studios, and I've noticed that it is a lot different than a traditional Indian yoga school. But of course, India is changing so much too, and it's being westernized. It is a lot. It's changing a lot in the cities. So you could still go to India and find all these fancy power yoga and aqua yoga and all these things, but that's not yoga. In a more traditional sense, yoga, like you said, a teacher, that's very calming and all those things, but it's also a little more for the body. It's more seen as an exercise. So if you ask a traditional teacher what yoga is, he or she would say yoga basically means union. And the physical body is supposed to be a stepping stone for you to become something else, for you to sort of transcend the physicality. But it's so become that the physical body and the mind is being a barrier to many people, most people around us, including maybe ourselves. But what I mean is it's a little more like philosophical. You use your physical body and your mind to sort of evolve. Am I right? But it's become a barrier now, and that's what yoga should deal with. It allows you to sort of have this perfect body and very clear mind, then to seek further. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. So I asked you this before, and I'm really glad we didn't get into it too much. But is yoga, in a sense, when you're doing the practice, almost a form of meditation, where you really try to kind of get out of your everyday experience of, like, I am a body and I need to go to, place A and place B and place C and do all these things. Is it kind of a time to have some sort of, we'd call it awareness, where you are really focused on kind of how your body feels in that moment and how that connects to your mind? Or how does that differ from normal athletics, I suppose?
I'm going to go back to the previous question and finish that point. So what I was saying is the difference between a traditional Indian setting and a westernized yoga school it's a lot different. because the first time, one of the times when I walked into yoga class here, and I just wanted to see what's happening and how people teach here, a lot of the essence is lost, to be honest. I saw some simple, I would say, mistakes that people do. Is the teacher I saw, he was talking through the asanas. When he was holding the asanas, he was speaking.
What's an asana?
Asana is basically a posture.
Okay.
I can explain that later, but
Sure.
What this teacher was doing is he was talking through the asanas. When he was holding the pose, he was sort of explaining and trying to be in this calming voice, and that's a very fundamental flaw, because our teachers never spoke during holding a pose, because it has a lot of implications. If you talk during a pose, you're not supposed to, because you're supposed to concentrate on your breathing. And when you speak, of course, your breathing gets disrupted and you're again breathing in and out. So that's a very, very fundamental flaw, and it has implications, because if you get into the depth of yoga sciences, you see what that can do to your physicality and your mentality. They probably don't realize it now, but sooner or later, they might end up having some problems. It's not that I wish for them to have problems, but it just is a thing. It will happen. So things like that, like small details that could make yoga a holistic experience, it's a bit like lost in this transition between the Indian and the Western yoga.
Sure.
But having said that, I don't mean that yoga is something that a traditional yoga can only be found in India. Absolutely not. Yoga is universal. It doesn't belong to a religion. It doesn't belong to anybody. So it's my only point is that yoga is not a product, and sometimes it comes off as a product that people
something to be marketed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the teachers, the way they sell these things, it's a little bit off, I would say.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I've definitely felt that, and I guess I almost don't want to call it my practice, because I don't quite have a yoga class, but in the class that I teach, I feel that if I'm not describing the way that they should be feeling in their pose, that they get bored.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
I feel that they kind of sit there and think like, okay, what's the point?
Yeah.
What am I getting out of this movement?
Yeah. Let me give you a simple example. Everybody knows electricity exists, isn't it? And it's a marvelous creation. Because of electricity, it's wondrous. We can do so many things. But it doesn't mean you can go put your finger into the socket. It's going to burn you, isn't it? So in that way, yoga is an extremely powerful tool, and it's very subtle. So, of course, people are curious and they lack patience to understand what it does to their body, but that comes over time. But because of this lack of patience, people have these expectations of what to get from yoga, and what am I doing with this posture, and questions like that arises.
Sure.
And that is why I think like a good teaching system can sort of make them understand why they're doing certain postures and why they're holding those postures for so long and certain things,
Yeah. And I wonder if part of it is that many people in Norway and America probably don't think that they have the time to go to like a yoga retreat and learn the basic tenets and learn principles of it and really learn the overall philosophy. Because I know I've picked up some of the peacefulness and some of the usefulness of like prana breathing from a couple of teachers, but most of the time, I'm just there for an hour. So I wonder how much they would really even be able to reach me if my goal in that hour was to get a good stretch in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Get my heart rate up.
Yeah. Well,
so I guess how maybe this is kind of a large question, but what would be a good way, do you think, to kind of bridge the gap between a traditional Indian style of yoga and kind of a westernized athletic version of yoga? Well, or is it important? Is it okay that they are two very different entities?
Well, my personal opinion on this is, of course, there is no. Of course, you can try to bridge the gap between the two, but the people, let's just say the people who came up with yoga, okay, there's a really deep science involved in it, and there is a very good reason why you start off your the yoga exercises by a certain way, and it's step-by-step process. You never see a yoga instructor doing, for example, I don't know how to say it in English, the yoga postures. What I mean is there's a gradual step-by-step process of how you perform these asanas. So in that sense, the guidelines are sort of being set, and it's scientifically proved that this is why you need to do these, steps in these directions. You cannot, for instance, suddenly right now without doing warm-ups suddenly do an asana, isn't it?
Sure.
So in that way, it's very well thought out and it's very well planned. So that's what I mean between the difference between traditional and Indian yoga, because in an Indian setting, you would always most certainly start off with the most basic things of how it was designed, then gradually go up to the asanas. So I'm going to talk about Hatha Yoga here. Hatha Yoga is the kind of yoga that I'm teaching to my students here in Volda. Hatha Yoga basically means the sun and the moon. Ha is the sun, Ta is the moon. Okay. It's the culmination of the sun and the moon in you. So there is two characteristics in you, the sun and the moon, and you sort of bridging it together. And Hatha Yoga serves as the stepping stone for you to do furthermore yoga postures. And there are lots of asanas. Basically, an asana means a posture. And anything could be a posture. You're sitting now and that's a posture. You're raising your arms, that can be a posture, isn't it? Like anything can be a posture. So there are innumerable, countless postures a physical body can display. Mm-hmm. But the important thing is the physical body with the mind, bodily postures depend on also how you're feeling. Have you ever noticed that when you're feeling really happy, your body is in a certain way? When you're feeling very sad, your body is in a certain way. Your body tends to take shapes. So why these yoga asanas, why these yoga postures is because you consciously make your body do a certain pose, so you increase your consciousness. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that is why we force our physical body to do these asanas. To force the mind to do something, it's a very difficult task. The mind is a complete different ballgame, but you can make your body do certain things, which is why you hold these postures and asanas in certain ways, because you can make your body do those things. You can command your body to do these things. So what I mean is, with the yoga asanas that I teach, there are innumerable asanas again, but in the traditional Hatha Yoga asanas, there are 84 asanas that have been chosen. And these 84 asanas are the ultimate asanas for the physical body. And so in these 84 asanas, you can't directly jump into the most complicated asana in the beginning. So there is a process, a gradual process. And when you talk about the Western yoga, I've noticed that people want to work out. People want to work their body.
Right.
And yoga is not really exactly that. Because like I said, it's a gradual process, and it's basically increasing your awareness and increasing your consciousness. And you do these, hold these asanas to do just that. So there is an immediate effect, but it's very subtle. So unless you develop, you increase your awareness to notice that, you're not going to get the essence of it immediately. So does that answer my question? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so I'm curious about the different kinds of poses. If you were going into a pose that's associated with the sun, which would probably be like liveliness and sense of joy, maybe. Do you tell your students like, okay, we're in a sun pose now, and this is how we're going to help program our body to feel this way? Or do you just kind of hope that they pick it up? Like now you're in a moon asana.
Yeah. Good question. Because I used to take a class back in India, and in India the class ran like this. We would have two teachers on the stage or on the dais, and then one of the teachers would be holding the postures and the other explaining it. And they would take turns to sort of switch, and there would be a few other teachers who would walk around and make sure that students are not, at least they're trying to do it the right way. Of course, like a lot of people have physical barriers. They can't stretch and they can't do this and that. So it's a gradual process. So in a traditional setting, the teacher would, the person who's speaking about the asanas, he talks about the asana, how we're supposed to hold it, and he talks about what it does to your body, what are the advantages of holding this asana. And of course, there's a little bit of philosophy behind the asana that he ought to tell you. But it's interesting that this is one of the things that I miss a lot from home, is that a yoga class, they explain what the asana is doing to you, but also they let you feel it. There's a lot of quiet stillness in between. They don't talk all the time. So when you're holding an asana, you're supposed to feel it, and sooner or later you will feel it. if you don't in the beginning. So they sort of allow you to have this space when you're doing it. And for example, if I'm doing the Surya Namaskara, the sun salutations, and if I'm being told all the time what I'm supposed to feel, I don't think I would personally like that, because I want to find it within me. Of course, I would like them to point me in a direction but not give me all the answers of how I'm supposed to feel.
Mm-hmm.
So that's exactly what happened to me. And another beautiful thing that happened in my classes was we did an entire round of yoga, asanas, and meditation and pranayama, which is the breathing exercises. And then we had a setting which is very, very traditional in India, where the teachers sit in front of the students and they talk. So it's a Q&A, and then they narrate a small little story from the history books or from one of those interesting, fascinating Indian historical stories.
Cool.
To sort of engage everybody and talk about like how it all came about and what's happening. And so I miss that, to be honest. And yeah, and that's one of the most different things over here, because when I explain to my students in Volta now, talking about them, of course I talk to them about the asana. So before I hold the posture, before I show it to them, I ask them to watch me first. So everybody's standing and watching me perform the asana. So I do it slowly, how it's meant to be done, and then I ask them to do exactly that. Then they repeat it. But while they're repeating it, sometimes I am watching them and I'm correcting them. But I am guiding them into in a way that, for example, if you're doing Surya Namaskara again, I am telling them what are the implications it has on your body, and what does the Surya Namaskara do to your mind, what does it do to your, to your legs, to your calf muscles, to your knees, what does it do to that? Yeah. And about the feeling part, I don't talk so much about it in Norway, because about how you're supposed to feel, because that's a topic that is a bit, it's a bit, I'm wary about, in a sense that I don't want to push them to feel things, because
Right.
at least the students I teach, they're a little unfamiliar to a traditional yoga setting. They had few yoga teachers before me, but they've mixed yoga and Tai Chi and things like that. So I have to get them back on track in a way to my teaching, and then so I don't talk too much about how they're supposed to feel, but I guide them on how they're supposed to breathe and how they're supposed to hold the postures, and basically have this thoughtless yoga class, and then eventually they'll start feeling things. I hope. And then eventually I can start telling them what it implies, what it does to your mind, what it does to your body, how it raises the consciousness, how it raises your consciousness. And that's a topic that's very difficult to talk about, because like I said to you, you hold a yoga posture to basically increase your consciousness, isn't it? So it's hard to explain to people what is consciousness, how to increase your consciousness, and why to do that. So I haven't got there yet with my students here in Norway, but I'm hoping to do that eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be really interesting. Would you, by increasing your consciousness, would you mean specifically something like bringing a greater awareness to certain parts of your body, or would it be awareness of your thoughts, or both? Or I guess that's a large idea, right? Increasing your consciousness. What does that mean in the yoga setting?
That's a very good question, and like you said, it's a very broad subject to talk about, but I'm going to try. So basically, it again brings me back to a set of beliefs that we grow up with in India, and I'm going to talk a little bit about how we grew up back home with our religious identities and things like that. So I was born in a very traditional and very typical Indian Hindu family, and what it means to be a Hindu is, it means to be a seeker, like you seek the truth. It's as simple as that. There is not even people say Hinduism, and it's become a term now, but there is no ism in Hindu. And Hinduism is not even a religion, and of course, like, everybody looks at it as a religion now, but that's entirely untrue, because Hinduism was just a way of life. And why I'm saying this is, I'm going to connect this to what I'm going to say. And so Hinduism came, let's say 600, let's say a certain time ago, and before that, people still practiced this way of life. People still had yoga asanas, yoga with them. But then Hinduism came, and then they sort of, it was something like, they found this need to organize themselves in a way that they should call it religion or whatever. So what I'm saying is the basic essence of this whole Hindu, being a Hindu, is you seek the truth. And how you seek the truth is, of course, there are many ways to do that. And yoga is one of those ways. And like you use the word awareness, and that's interesting because Buddhism talks a lot about awareness. Mm-hmm. And that's what Gautama Buddha, Siddhartha, who we refer to as the Buddha, he used that channel, the awareness channel, to become enlightened. But there are many, many more ways of how you can be enlightened. So basically, the seeking and the enlightenment, it's very interconnected. And then yoga is one of those very powerful tools that you can use that to, transcend further, if you know what I mean. Coming back to what I was saying, so you use yoga postures and you use all these yoga processes to increase your consciousness, is what I said. And how you do it, there's a certain way to do it. And then eventually, let me just organize my thoughts. It's a hard topic to talk about, man.
Of course, of course, yeah.
Well, it's very difficult to explain consciousness and things like that. But basically it's always a quest for seeking and finding the higher truth. And yoga is one of those powerful tools to do that. And and you asked me about the consciousness part of it. So for example, if you're holding a yoga pose, all right, there's a certain implication to your spiritual self. You're doing, for example, the Adho Mukha Svanasana, which is like the downward dog position.
Okay.
Yeah. And what is it doing to you? It's a part of the sun cycle. It's part of the Surya Namaskara as well. It's increasing your bodily consciousness in a certain way. You're holding your arms down, you're holding your feet backwards, and you're staying in that position. And it's working with all these different chakras in your body, and it's sort of increasing your consciousness, if you know what I mean. I can't explain it better than that. It's very difficult to talk about this.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I use awareness, I guess, because it feels a little more concrete.
Yeah.
For my understanding of how my mind works and how other people's brains work, because our brains take in so much information at a time, and so much is filtered out, and what we're consciously aware of is a very, very small fraction of that. And so I think it's important to take some time to bring awareness into the way that your body feels, because I think that in a lot of ways we really ignore what our body is telling us throughout the day. We spend so much time sitting down in chairs. We spend so much time with weight on our shoulders, especially as a student, carrying a backpack around. It's just, I think yoga is really great because, like I said, the class that I teach is called Movement and Mobility. And so in a lot of ways, I use it a lot more clinically than I think that yoga would be used. But I use the vehicle of yoga to bring me from position to position. And I usually begin with a sun salutation sequence. And I like to think that it helps bring awareness, like specifically into how I would pack my scapula back, into how I would use my shoulders to help support me, and then also into some tightness that I might have in my calves. And so those are the pointers that I really try to bring to my students. Like, how does this make you feel? In what way are you aware of your body that you weren't before? And you had said before that when you hold a pose, you are not supposed to talk. And you will have sometimes another instructor who's doing the narration, which seems awesome. That seems like a really good fix to that. But I was wondering, is a yoga class in India or in traditional yoga, does it have the same duration that we do in I guess, in the West, in quotes.
Yeah.
Because everything here is blocked off into 30 minutes or 45 minutes or an hour. It's usually pretty rigid that way.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to tell you my philosophy.
Yeah.
So the way I look at this is because yoga was given to me in a very early age. Sort of feel very privileged to do yoga. So in that sense, when I got this responsibility to be a teacher, I first had my class. My first class was when I was 16 years old. I took a class for 30-year-old people, and that was very interesting. So at that age, I was thinking, I started to question myself and how I'm supposed to be a teacher. Of course, I was not the main teacher. I was the person who was holding the poses while someone described. But still, in a way, it was like being an instructor. So my philosophy is very simple. I realize what a powerful tool yoga is for the self, like for myself, for my inner well-being, and for me to become a better person, and for me to basically increase my awareness and become more conscious of why I'm here in this world and things like that. All these questions I wonder a lot about. So I recognize that yoga is one of those really powerful tools that were given to me. So when I'm teaching, one of the biggest mistakes I can make is if I get a bunch of students, and if they fail to if I fail to deliver yoga in a certain way that they don't understand it, and if they lose interest in it, then they've lost a really good way to explore themselves, isn't it?
Yeah.
So for my personal philosophy, that's my personal thinking, that I try to look at myself as a responsible teacher, because students, if a person doesn't know anything about yoga, and if he or she comes to me and I start teaching, and if I don't do it correctly, or if I don't do it well, then that person sort of loses the basic essence of yoga. Yeah. So that's my personal sort of understanding of how I'm supposed to lead a class. Yeah.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a class that everyone can approach.
Exactly. And the duration is also very interesting, because again, like when I got this job as a yoga teacher, they said to me that I have 1 hour of yoga, and that it's fine, because you can sort of squeeze a few yoga lessons in that hour. But to begin with, 1 hour is a good time, because I usually start my yoga classes with something called as Shitli Karana. Basically means stretching and cleansing. You stretch each and every part of your body, little parts of your body, like your joints and your legs, feet, all those, every part from the feet to your head, you stretch out. And then it's like if you play football, you're supposed to warm up before playing football. It's simple as that. So I do that, and then I go on gradually to work with the postures one by one. But the way it worked back home is you start with cleansing and stretching, and then you gradually learn few postures. And as the days go by, you learn more and more complex postures. So in a way, the duration of the class really depends on how much you want to do and how much you're meant to do. As you progress, as your body becomes ready for more and more postures, you increase the duration of your class. So a 1 hour class is still good enough for me, but I sometimes find it hard to squeeze in all the things that I want to teach. For instance, I want to teach them Shitli Karana, which is for me very, very important, the stretching and the cleansing part. That is absolutely crucial. I spend 10 minutes on that. I spend 10-20 minutes on the basic postures to get the body ready and the mind ready. Then I give them a couple of sun salutation, Surya Namaskara postures. We do the whole cycles a couple of times, and then we get into more complex asanas. And then I also like to do pranayama, which is the breathing exercises. And that I need at least a minimum of 15 minutes. But I don't have that time because I do all these things before that. So I try to squeeze all these things in 1 hour, but I don't think it's enough. So there are so many times that the students also feel that they need more. And that's the best feeling I get as a teacher, when it's like, it's 9 o'clock now, we're supposed to go home. But yeah. So it depends. The duration of the class, it depends on what you've planned and what you want to do in that class.
Okay. You had mentioned that yoga is separate from other kind of religious or maybe even spiritual practices in a lot of ways. And really, I guess I'd heard it before, but I hadn't really understood that yoga is as you said, a three-part practice.
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering if you could tell me a little bit about those three parts, about the mind, the body, and was it the spirit, the soul?
Yeah, it's a 4-part practice.
4-part.
Yeah, it's not. It's the mind. It's the body. It's the mind, and we use this word energy around your body, and of course it's the spiritual aspect of it. So of course, like I said before, the physical body and the mind is supposed to be a stepping stone for you to become something bigger, supposed to transcend this physicality. But it's become a barrier, of course. You have to train your body to be comfortable, and you have to train your mind. The mind right now is probably one of the most toughest things to train in a way. If you look at the mind reminds me of a really intense traffic jam in India. So let's just say the mind is the road, and all the vehicles are all the thoughts coming into it. So the mind is that complex. It's not easy to not have this thoughtless still. If I sit here and try, if I try to have that sort of stillness, it would be difficult. So what we do is the first part is the culmination of physical and the mental. And when the physical and the mental is ready, your awareness increases so much that you also start to recognize the energy aspect of yoga. And that, of course, when we talk about energy, you talk about the chakras. There are many chakras in the body. There are many that I don't know, but there are more than 100 chakras in the body. And the 7 main chakras are identified in the body. And as we all know, the 7 chakras, of course, start with the crown. It starts with the forehead, then the throat, and then the heart chakra, the solar plexus, and the Muladhara. The Muladhara is basically at the edge of your spinal cord. It's called the root chakra. So these 7 main chakras are identified as the 7 crucial chakras. And what it means to work with energy is working with the chakras. And once you start to become more aware of these chakras, then you realize what it does to you. Every chakra has a very significant impact on you, on yourself. For instance, the Muladhara or the tail chakra, the one at the base of your spine, is very significant to how grounded you are, and it has very values like that. And we say that of course the chakra near your genitals is of course the life force. And then there's a chakra in your solar plexus, and that is associated with emotions like anger and things like that. And of course there's a heart chakra which is associated with lots of emotions like love and things like that. And there's a throat chakra which is associated with creativity. And there's a third eye chakra, which basically it means an eye to look inward. It's obviously not a physical eye like most Hindu gods have been depicted with. It's an eye to look inwards. It's a symbolic third eye. Then there's of course a crown chakra which is on the tip of your forehead. So becoming aware of these chakras is of course difficult, and it's a slow process to start to it's again it deals with a lot of subtleties. And that's why yoga and meditation is important, because you start to get aware of these energies around you. Yeah.
Does this stem from Hinduism, or is the idea of becoming aware of your chakras, is that pretty independent from a lot of other I guess religious or spiritual teachings in the area?
Okay. That's another fascinating question that even I have wondered so many times, because I've studied religion as a subject when I was in bachelor's and then a little bit in master's. Hinduism, like I said before, it doesn't have an ism. Like I even said that it is not even a religion and it's a way of life. So yoga existed way before Hinduism. Let's just put it this way. There was someone who discovered yoga, okay? And this person discovered yoga, and this person wanted to teach or taught 7 people this really yogic science. And we call these 7 people the Saptarishis, the 7 saints. 7 saints went to 7 different parts of the world, and then they spread this teaching of yoga. And one of the rishis, one of the saints, came down south to where we are now, and he's still being revered even now. If you go to like many small villages in India, you can find, traces of him still being there. People still talk about him, and people, we don't know how many thousands of years ago it was, but he's still revered to as even a god. So yoga started like that. Yoga started with someone exploring these things, these yogic sciences of exploring your body, your mind, your soul, things like that, and then it was passed on. So Hinduism came way later, and of course, like when a religion suddenly pops up in the world, and the region where the yoga developed, then they sort of associated with the religion that's they're from.
Right.
So I would never ever claim that I am a Hindu and yoga is a Hindu thing. No, if people say that, then they're unaware of what they're talking about. Because yoga is beyond religion. Yoga is, like I said, it's the most universal thing to everybody. Everybody is entitled to yoga. Yeah.
You had brought up Tai Chi before, and that some of your students do Tai Chi as well. And I remember seeing videos of people in Japan, for instance, who will all gather in like a small town square in the morning and practice Tai Chi together. And it seems like a really strong kind of communal thing to do.
Yeah.
Is that similar? Or I guess, how does that compare to yoga practice in India? Is it something that most people do, or is it usually a subset of the population?
It's a subset of the population. Of course, now there are many yoga organizations, many volunteer organizations that go around teaching yoga. But it's still, you think that a lot of people in India would do yoga, but it's unfortunately not the case. A lot of people don't even do basic things of yoga. So it's a divided population. Of course, now it's increasing by number, but it's still very divided. I would say a lot of people don't do yoga in India. Like how Westerners think of India as everybody does yoga. No, it's not true.
Okay. Yeah. I guess I'm not too surprised. A lot of people are so busy with the tasks that they feel they need to do every day.
Absolutely.
And so it's difficult to take time away from your schedule for something that, until you learn the benefits of it, until you learn personally what it can do for you, it's
absolutely
difficult to justify that, right? Yeah.
You also mentioned meditation earlier, and I'd like to touch a little bit on that, if that's okay.
Please. Yeah.
So and it's not just you, but a lot of people have asked me this question before, and how to do meditation. And the answer is quite simple. You cannot do meditation. You can be meditative, but you can't do meditation. If you try to do meditation, then it's gone. You're finished. You cannot do something called meditation. So what I mean is, you can be meditative. So again, brings back to what we discussed earlier, saying that it's being more aware, and it's it's very interesting to explain this, and I'm finding it hard to get the right words, because when we learned how to meditate when we were learning yoga 10-15 years ago, we were taught very simple steps of just how to observe basic things like breathing. And that is and why do you do that? To sort of become meditative. But doing meditation is not something like sitting, cutting off from society and sitting somewhere and closing your eyes. It's not exactly that. You can be meditative anywhere else, anywhere in the world, in any situation you are. You can be meditative. So there's like a slight subtle difference. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying, but there's a subtle difference between these two things. What I'm talking about. You can be meditative anywhere. You can be meditative in a classroom, in any situation in your life. So that's another very misunderstood concepts in the West, that people try to do meditation with different processes. They often listen to guided meditations and all those things, which is fine. But then again, the purpose of it is to become meditative. Like you have this awareness and this conscious awareness of yourself, and that's the essence of it.
Sure.
Yeah.
And how would you describe becoming meditative in a yoga practice? Is that something that generally happens? Do you enter a meditative state of being while practicing yoga?
Interestingly, that happened to me yesterday. 3 weeks ago, I took a class, and the same thing happened. Sometimes when I'm holding a yoga posture, I'm really feeling it, and I'm really into the posture. So I stopped talking in between the postures. And so one of the students gave me some feedback saying that it would be nice if you, sort of explained it a little more. And I totally understand her point. But even yesterday, we had a really good session yesterday, probably one of the best sessions I've had with the students, because even they were really happy after the course. When I was holding a simple warrior pose yesterday, and I was doing lots of postures yesterday, sort of have this heightened sense of awareness and heightened sense of, you perceive things more better. So it happens to me, and it's starting to happen to me. It's in an increased manner. So I'm starting to get very aware of what the postures are doing to me. Even holding simple postures like the Virabhadrasana. I have no idea how to say that in English. I'm sorry, but
can you describe it? Maybe I could find the English.
I think it's like you plant one of your legs down and you raise the other leg and you sort of stretch out with your arms.
Like a tree pose where you put
something like a tree pose. Yes.
Okay.
So even something simple as that, I feel very aware. I feel very still, and for me, it's absolutely important because of the situation we are in as students and trying to be here in Norway and study and all those things. There's a lot going on in our minds all the time. So at least in this 1 hour yoga sessions, it's also very beneficial for me because I am so present and I'm so alive and I'm so in the moment. I'm almost without any thoughts. I always like to think that if I'm like that, it somehow rubs off on the students a little bit. And yesterday I got a little glimpse of that. The students were so quiet, so they followed my voice, and there was no disruption in the class, and it was very successful in that way. So yeah, to answer your question, I do feel like my senses are being heightened sometimes.
Okay, lovely. Before we wrap up here, I would just like to go through some basic yoga vocabulary that I think it'd be nice for me to learn some of it. And so asana, that is a pose that you hold, and that could be any sort of do you have to hold it for a specific amount of time for it to count as an asana, or like can a movement be an asana?
Anything can be an asana. Any posture can be an asana.
Okay.
And that's
any posture which you hold.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why I said that there are 84 asanas that are designed to be yogic. But anything can be an asana. And the duration of how you hold it, of course, it depends on your physicality. If my hamstrings and if my thigh muscles are very, very rigid, and I can't probably hold certain asanas for as much as I would hope for. So it again depends on like gradually training your body.
Yeah. Of course. Baby steps.
Absolutely.
Can you describe to me what a meridian is in yoga terms? I think sometimes I've heard it being like interchangeable with chakras, I believe. I think meridians are usually described as like pathways that your energy flows in, perhaps.
Okay. So basically, like we spoke about, I'm just going to tell you the names and make you repeat the names with me, okay?
Great.
So I'm going to talk about the fundamental chakras in the human body, okay? There is the Muladhara. Yes, very good pronunciation, which is located at the base of your spine.
Okay.
Then there is the Svadhisthasana.
The Svadhisthasana?
Yeah. Svadhisthasana, which is just above the genital organ. Then there is the Manipuraka, which is just below the navel. Then there is the Anahata. Yeah, which is just beneath where the rib cage meets. Then there is the Vishuddhi. Yes. Vishuddhi. Which is at the pit of the throat. Then there is the Agnya chakra.
Wait, one more time.
Agnya.
Anya.
Yeah. Agnya. Yeah.
Agnya.
Very good. Very good. Now it's the third time you got it. Very good. Which is between the eyebrows. The Agnya is just between the eyebrows, right in the middle.
Okay.
Then there is this is going to be hard for you. Rara.
Sahasrara.
Yeah, good.
Sahasrara.
Also known as the Brahmarandra,
Okay, Brahmaranda.
which is at the top of the head, where when a child is born, there is a soft spot.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so some yoga
Yeah,
terms that you
some
can probably use
vocabulary.
in your class. So, coming back to what you asked, these are basically the chakras, or you said meridians.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a little bit aware of the. I feel a little. I'm not really aware of the Western words. Of course, I speak English, but yoga terms. I haven't taught yoga to a Western setting before, so I never practiced the English words to it.
Of course.
Yeah,
Of course.
that's why I'm so sorry if I said too many words that you didn't get. But probably what they mean by meridians is these chakra energy points.
Okay.
And these energy points are symbolic to many things. Like I said before, the Muladhara is keeping you grounded, and that's like the base of your. It's one of the most important chakras. Then different chakras have different synonyms or different connotations to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And could you describe to me what a chakra is?
Mm-hmm.
Like, is it a source of energy, or is it where energy collects? What is the thinking behind it?
Okay, I made another note I would like to read out for you. And
Yeah.
this is from one of the gurus I follow closely. Chakras have more than one dimension to them. One dimension is their physical existence, but they also have a spiritual dimension. So what chakra means is basically a point where the energy congregates,
Okay.
where the energy is intensified, and where you can easily identify that chakra. So these 7 chakras, if you, for example, if I ask you to sit still, and if I ask you to focus on your third eye chakra, which is in between your eyebrows, it wouldn't be so difficult for you to sort of feel that tingling energy around your forehead. And a lot of people find it easy to sort of focus here.
Yeah.
Have you ever felt that? Have you ever tried to focus on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You feel
absolutely.
something, right? Isn't it?
Yeah.
So, and that is very, very easy to find, because the third eye chakra is one of the most easy things to sort of identify. You sit there, close your eyes, and then you feel something between your eyebrows. The same way, there are different parts on your body where you can do that. But it's very difficult to open up those chakras, very difficult to be aware of those chakras, which is why you need to work. So basically, chakras are different points in your body where you can explore. I'm going to take you back to what I said before. There are many different ways to explore, to be enlightened, is what I said. And one of the things that Buddhism teaches very beautifully is through the channel of awareness. So this yogi I told you about, who gave these yogic lessons to the 7 saints, he happened to explore 102 channels of being enlightened. 102 physical channels, physical chakras, physical channels he explored. And so, of course, this is very complex. Now we're getting into very complex theories and of spirituality. And he explored these 102 ways of being enlightened, and he passed it on to these 7 guys. Now, one of those aspects is awareness. Okay? And it's a complex topic to talk more about, but one of those channels is definitely awareness, and you can explore enlightenment through any of these channels. Yeah.
Is there any connection between there being like 7 main chakras in the body, and
is there any connection?
Is there any connection between these 7 channels and the 7 people who have been taught yoga, who passed it down, or is that just coincidental?
I don't think so. It's just coincidental.
Okay.
Yeah. Like I said, there are more chakras than just 7. There's 7 prominent and important chakras.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I think that's all I have today. So thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Yeah.
Thanks so much for listening to episode 1 of Learner's Permit. It was great to be able to talk to Kishore a little bit. I have some more interviews lined up for the upcoming month, so keep an eye out for those. I'll be making new announcements on Facebook, as well as hosting new episodes on CuriousMagnet.com. And you can now head over to CuriousMagnet.com to check out all of the past episodes of Digital North, as well as this episode of Learner's Permit. I will be hosting future episodes of Digital North and Learner's Permit on CuriousMagnet.com, as well as on YouTube at The Curious Magnet. You can make sure to follow us on Facebook to see when new episodes come out. Thanks so much for listening. Stay curious.